Right, white box is lit, well you can't see it. I'm going to put that round and check for a second. And the triad. That's lit too. Right, they're both going, although you probably can't see them. But now, with the white box, you light it and you have to wait until it blooms, which you will clearly see in a second or two. It usually takes about a minute for that to happen, and that's when the flames come around the outside of the white box. With the triad, it's a dual fuel stove, so you've got meths obviously in this side, but if you wanted to, you can take it out, turn it upside down, put it down, and you've got it as a Esbit tablet. Now obviously from the design of the stove, you can see straight away, the advantage here is that if I had a pot, I can put the pot straight on the triad, and the triad is working straight away, as it were, so it's not wasting fuel. The argument that people have quite naturally made about the white box is that you can't do anything with it now until it gets going. What some people have done, clever people, they put 3 tent pegs around it, put the pot on, so at least they feel they're getting some heat to the pot before it blooms. But of course that sort of first couple of minutes, depending on the weather and time of day and so on, depends how important it is to eat, can be very important. Now, I don't know if you can just see. Can you see that blooming? See it there? Now, I don't know if anybody wants to come and an adult, preferably, just like to come and just give me the difference between the heat above that and the heat above that. Anybody like to come and volunteer? Burn their hands? Come on. It's much warmer, isn't it? So this really does burn like a Bunsen burner, but for the people that have bought a white box or looking at a white box, you can see what I was saying about the spread of the flames. You need to have a wide pot on that, and really the Vargo Tea-Light mug or the Alpkit mug, got the same dimensions. When you put the pot straight on that now, the flames tend to go up the outside of the mug, which makes the mug very, very hot to handle, but obviously it's not very efficient. Whereas the Triad, although it seems very, very dainty by comparison, this one hasn't vaporised yet, but when it does vaporise, all the jets will appear out of the holes there. You can use a smaller mug on that. You can actually use just an MSR drinking mug, that small, can go on there, but you couldn't use it on that. But in a tent, as you might want to do, and obviously you're not advised to, but in a tent you can imagine that now is kicking out a hell of a lot of radiated heat, and you've got to be very, very careful. So it's ideal, you need to sort of, if you're going to do it, be something in a Shangri-La or a Hex, or I've done it in one of these, but towards the centre of the pole there, just because you need to be safe with the amount of flame on the outside. Whereas the Triad's a lot more gentle. It just does its stuff. Now this will bring 500ml to the boil in about 12 minutes or so. So that's quite fast, but of course on top of that you've got the couple of minutes at the beginning where it's ready for it to bloom, whereas that'll bring the same amount of liquid to the boil in 15 minutes. So it's horses for courses. Now, I'm not sure if the person's here, but last year we were selling both of these and somebody actually bought them and measured the amount of fuel that was used versus the amount of time taken, and interestingly the Triad used less fuel than the white box, although the white box brought it to boil faster. And of course after you've got it to that stage where it is boiled, well, what do you do with it? Can somebody just nip and get the pop cozy that's on top of the desk there with the tin with roses? Rose, can you just pass over the pop cozy with the on the pan? That's it. Yeah, there you go. See the Triad's kicking off now. Thank you very much. So with a pot cozy system, and most, it's the same material in different people's systems. When you're using rehydrated food, you can see how much heat's kicking it out. It's starting to melt the heat's far too close to it there. I mean that pan should be on there, so it gives you an idea of the spread of that. When you're using dried food, whether it's commercially dried, you dry it yourself with a homemade with a dryer, or it's freeze dried, you sometimes want to bring it to the boil and then perhaps simmer it, or at least keep it warm long enough so that you're going to enjoy it to the bottom of the food and not lose the heat. Hence the pot cozy system, a ridiculously simple piece of material which has actually got numerous uses. We sell it in lengths of half a metre, and with this you bring your pan to the boil with the food in there, which would normally then you would want to simmer for say 10 or 15 minutes. You can take it straight off the heat, put it in there, put the lid on, in whatever way it might be, no matter what size it is. Fold the lid over and just put a stone on top. You can make these exactly how you want to. I have to make it like this. I just think as heat rises it just needs more insulation on the top. So put that on the top, put a stone on there, and that'll still be too hot to eat after 15 minutes. And it'll still be piping hot in 20, which is more than enough simmering time for most foods, for most rehydration and all the rest of it. The remnants can be used as a windshield. Put it around the outside as a windshield, basic windshield. The advantage to the material being incredibly light, but also you just obviously scrunch it up and shove it anywhere in your rucksack. If you want to, you can fold it, put it down underneath the thermarest and use it as extra insulation as well. So it's remarkably, useful and flexible stuff. But the advantage, it's a shame that's just gone out. I was just going to show you how easy and how hard it is to blow these out. The white box, when it's going full tilt, is very, very difficult to blow out. So if you've got it in a tent and you're a bit concerned about things catching fire, then you might struggle to put it out. The only way to put it out really is to take an empty mug and stick it over the top and starve it of oxygen. The Triad, you can just blow out with a good puff, but it's a much more gentle cooking method really than the white box. And that's basically the difference between the two. They're both very, very popular for different reasons. Adventure racers might want the intense heat very, very quickly to rapidly heat their food. They boil the water, they put it inside their packet of food. They've made a pot cosy to go around the food to keep it warm. They roll that up and seal it. They're ready to eat straight away pretty well. Whereas the Triad user might want something that's a little bit more subtle. The flexibility of having an Esbit stove as well if you want to, which is no necessarily great advantage, but it's useful. It folds down very small and will actually sit inside a normal MSR mug. They both use, what I didn't conclude with, although that used slightly less fuel to do the business than that one did, it was only very, very slightly. I mean, it was negligible really. You had to really be well into measuring it with your syringe and so on. So horses for courses, that's a faster, more intense heat. That's a more subtle heat. That is easier to fill. That is easier to fill. That is easier to blow out. You saw me filling that. You will spill that unless you've got a syringe. That is easy to blow out, whereas I couldn't do that with the white box. But once that's cooled, I can actually just pick that up and run the remaining fuel down one of the legs back into the pot, which is again a useful facility. Whereas you need a syringe with that. If that's still got fuel in and you have managed to put it out, you will need a syringe to suck the liquid out. But most people, once they've used that a few times, will gauge exactly how much fuel they need to do to bring whatever amount of liquid it is to the boil, and after that they're away. That's as simple as that. So, beg pardon?
You don't ever fill them up while they're hot because the thing won't blow up and go all over people's faces.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's a different material. That's titanium, and this, if you're eco-friendly, this is made out of recycled beer bottles which are made out of tin in America, and he recycles them. Now this is the old model, aluminium. This is the old model, which has got 3 rivets holding the top of the bottle, if you like, that's inverted into the bottom there. And the new model we've got over there, he's now managed to do a swage to the top, so the top's curled over. It's a much neater finish. It'll hold a bit more fuel should you want it to for some reason. And so we've just got the last few of those we're clearing out for about 12 quid, and the new one's over there at 15. And this one's titanium, which is a more expensive material anyway, but that's now cold enough to deal with. And pour it back into the bottle without losing too much. So that's it basically. That's the difference between the two stoves, and that's what they're like. So they're ideal lightweight stoves. Thank you very much. Where's my hat?